Hello, LinkedIn, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, YouTube. I have to always stop and think. Um, I actually got this. They're not a sponsor or anything, but hey, if you're watching Focus, call me. I actually had this last night. So last night we ended up kind of a convoluted story, but um, kind of a convoluted story. We ended up going to rescue a dog up in Baltimore. So last night was kind of a late night. Um, no, we're not keeping the dog. We are slightly outnumbered by dogs in the house, and we're not sure how she does with other dogs. So if you're interested in adopting, reach out. But anyway, I had one of these on the way up, and I was like wired. But it was like in a focused way. It was pretty interesting. It's got it's got caffeine in it, 75 milligrams, about a cup of coffee, and it's got L-theanine, which is a kind of an amino acid that supposedly helps with cognition. So I'm enjoying that on this Wednesday afternoon. But you didn't come here, dear LinkedIn, Periscope, Twitch watcher, viewer, to hear me talk about a particular type of soda replacement. You came for a book review. So let me roll those credits now. All right. Are we getting the audio back? Yay. There it is. All right. So today's book review, I actually couldn't put this book down. It's that good. And let's see if we can adjust this so it fits in the scope of the window. So I had no idea who Jamie Kern Lima was. I was first introduced to her through an email saying like, hey, there's this big event tomorrow. It was like Sunday night a few weeks ago. And I was like, okay, sign up, free training. I'm all about the free training. And I was blown away by how good it was. And Ed Milet was a speaker. Jay Shetty was a speaker. Dean Graziosi was a speaker. Tony Robbins was a speaker. I mean, the speaker lineup that she had, Mel Robbins as well. I mean, it was just off the charts good. I mean, just ridiculously good. And so I had no idea who she was. She's the founder of It Cosmetics, which was acquired by L'Oreal Cosmetics in, I think it was 2016, for approximately $1.2 billion. She doesn't say exactly how much she got out of the deal. Oops. But it's estimated that she's worth about $420 million, which is a pretty good chunk of change by anyone's measure. But it's just a fascinating story of how she got to where she is. It's a fascinating story about her life, and how every phase she faced rejection and overcame it. Fascinating. And here's the key takeaway for me. What's fascinating with her is how she didn't let these rejections make her bitter. In fact, she actually developed a sense of gratitude about the rejections that she faced. And some of the rejections that she faced were just downright cruel. I mean, there was one of the potential early investors had made a wise comment about her weight, that they wouldn't, somebody wouldn't purchase cosmetics from somebody who quote unquote looked like her. Originally, what inspired her to develop the cosmetic brand was the fact she has rosacea, and she couldn't find any products that really kind of covered that up in a way that she thought could really serve it. And then she kind of did some research and figured out that the cosmetics industry generally doesn't go and focus on folks with kind of skin flaws and imperfect skin. And throughout the book, and this is really more later on, is how she kind of criticizes the beauty industry of well, holding up unbelievable standards, right? I mean, Photoshop models, et cetera, et cetera. Fascinating look. She kind of goes into how um, what motivated her, and interesting life story just in general. I mean, she grew up in, I'm assuming, was Washington State. She ended up being Miss Washington State. I forget the year. I think it might have been 2001, 2002. And she actually ended up being on the first season of Big Brother, which I had no idea. I don't. I lived in Germany when Big Brother came to the States. It was already huge over there, and um, I didn't know that. So it's fascinating. She kind of talks about what it was like to be on reality TV and kind of be in that spotlight before there was social media. Very interesting. And she actually was also a TV anchor. She did TV news for a while, which you can tell when I was watching her speak at her conference. Clearly, she has had a lot of experience being on camera. Like, you can just tell when people just kind of know it. Like, a friend of mine unfortunately passed away last year, and she would do these makeup tutorials herself because she was selling makeup. And I was like, wow, she's like a natural on the camera. And it turns out at her funeral, she had a master's degree in media and presenting. So you can kind of tell when people are comfortable on camera. I mean, I like to think I'm comfortable on camera, but that is just, I haven't had formal training in it, is basically what I'm saying. I'm kind of an amateur that just keeps banging at the wall. But I highly recommend it. The audiobook was outstanding. The audiobook was really good because she reads it. And Audible is a sponsor of Data Driven and Impact Quantum. So feel free to, there we go. I just knocked something over. Uh, definitely need to clean up the studio, that's for sure. But what's interesting is you go to Audible, you can get one free audiobook on us. If you end up deciding that you want an Audible subscription, they'll give us they'll toss us a little bit of a bone. And yeah, I would definitely check it out. Definitely go there and claim it. It's a good read. It's an interesting look into kind of the mind of an entrepreneur, someone who's had a successful exit, but someone who's more humble about it. Right? At any point, she could have been like, "Oh, I'm a genius. I'm a genius," but she was very humble about it, which I think it's kind of refreshing because there's plenty of entrepreneurs out there that'll go and after they've exited and they've got hundreds of millions of dollars, they're kind of in your face about it. She's pretty mellow about it. There's actually a part in there where she talks about how Forbes was going to highlight her as one of the richest self-made women in America or something like that. And she was kind of like, I don't want to be on that list. But it's interesting how she kind of came around to appreciate that. And it's just a good story. Like, it's a good story about someone who has had a lot of success, but on the way to success, she's had a lot of failure, a lot of rejection. And best of all, she managed to keep a sunny disposition about it. I mean, she managed to stay humble. And I don't know if the recordings from her event that she had are available. If you go to Ed Milet, his YouTube channel, he did a kind of a behind the scenes at the event. So apparently she used the same studio that Tony Robbins uses when he delivers big in virtual events. So I mean, it's massive. I mean, there's monitors everywhere. I mean, just they look like they might be about 10-foot by 10-foot monitors type of thing. There's all these people on a Zoom call. I mean, it's just impressive. And I think the attendance was also impressive too. It's a free event, and then if you ordered the book and you sent her a receipt in a certain period of time, you would get kind of extra bonuses and stuff, which reminds me I have to go and watch those. But I mean, it was just really well done. Her on-stage presence is top notch. And of course, throughout the book, you find out why, right? Well, not only was she an anchor for TV news, I think in Tri-Cities, Washington, and I think maybe Spokane, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. But she also delivered probably a couple hundred couple of hundred of times that she had to present on QVC, and she talks about what that's like and the pressure cooker that is, and how she managed to stay graceful under that. I mean, it's just a really good story. Like, so if you kind of like figure out like, you want to do something great and you're kind of like, oh man, this is beating me down, just listening to her story, I think was very insightful. And I have my first comment. It's John Wood. John Wood. If you don't know John Wood, you should totally check him out on YouTube. He produces the best machine learning and ML.net, as well as just general kind of data science and AI videos on YouTube. Definitely check him out. I always highlight him when I have a chance. And thank you, John. He actually gets Audible from the Data Driven sponsorship. You rock, sir. You rock. I owe you a Starbucks next time we meet each other. John and I used to work together at a former employer that actually was just acquired like this week. So, but that's awesome. That's cool, man. Thank you. Yeah. So it is. It's just a good read. It's just a good story. And I think what's interesting, and this is something I never really thought about until I listened to Grant Cardone's wife, or Elena Cardone, her book, which is called Empire Building, which is also another good read. And it was also Rachel Hollis was really the one that made me kind of stop and think about this. Most self-help kind of gurus and brands tend to be men. I mean, I don't know why that is. It just is what it is. But what's interesting, and I think Rachel Hollis really kind of brought this to, at least to my attention, was there's a different perspective women will have when running businesses and just kind of how they deal with challenges that I found very valuable. I liked the way Rachel Hollis kind of presents her story and her case. Very interesting entrepreneur there. Grant Cardone's significant other, Elena Cardone, has an even more fascinating backstory than Grant does. And kind of her side of their relationship was a very fascinating read as well. But I put this book in that same category because it's like, well, what sorts of challenges do female entrepreneurs face? And not in the technology industry, but in the cosmetics industry, which I thought would have been a bit more welcoming to people. It's not like there's a rich culture of tech bros, right? Like in the cosmetics industry, but maybe there is. I don't know. Kind of reading her story, and she was the first female CEO of any brand that L'Oreal owned. And we're only talking like they were acquired in 2016, 2017. Like, really? I was kind of surprised by that. I thought that would have been kind of done in the 80s or 90s at the latest, but fascinating story. So, and it's just really good, feel good story. I mean, she started from her living room. She talks about how she met various people throughout the way who helped her on her journey. But the part that really moved me the most was even the guy who told her that no one would buy cosmetics from her because of her weight and how she looks, et cetera, et cetera. He called to apologize, and she wasn't bitter about it. And there was another story when somebody tried to swipe one of her formulas. That's an interesting story right there. But she wasn't bitter about it when first she was mad. I mean, as anyone would be, but she kind of talked it down. And she's also a very faith-focused person, which I think is pretty cool too. And she's very open about sharing it. I'm impressed. And I know she did an interview with Ed Milet, so I'm definitely going to listen to that. But it was just everything that she put together in this event. Again, I had no idea who she was. Shame on me, right? Until I witnessed her event. I attended her event. It was stellar. It was like 11 hours. Talking about stamina. She delivered. She talked really well about these different stories. She kind of wove together these various guests that were on the show. And I mean, it was probably, Andy and I have talked about this on the show where we talk about virtual events and things like that. And I would say up until then, the Grant Cardone 10X boot camp was probably the best, or 10X day, I forget which one it was called, was probably the best virtual event. So it was how breakout rooms and stuff like that and interactivity. I would say this year in terms of production values was way better. There was no breakout room experience that I saw Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I would say that this was one of the best, hands down, virtual events I've ever seen. Period. And a discussion. And it's just a really uplifting message. She had actors. She had one of the hosts of GMA. I forget her name. I don't watch Good Morning America, but um, it was all a very good story, and she just seems like a good person, just all up, and a good entrepreneur. So I mean, it's just, I mean, anyone that can get acquired for over $1 billion and still have roughly a third equity in it, that's pretty good. You're doing all right, right? Because it's not like you sold for $1 billion but you only have like a 10% stake. Granted, $100 million paycheck still isn't too shabby, but wow, I mean, the struggle she went through, I mean, it was just amazing. Highly recommend this book. Highly recommend this book. Go to um, thedatadrivenbook.com. You'll get routed over to Audible. She reads the book. It is perfect. She does a really good job telling her own story. Whenever possible, I like to listen to authors who wrote the book. Also narrate the book. I think that gives an extra kind of, I don't know, it gives an extra je ne sais quoi about it, like, I don't know. And now that I've spoken out some French, I should probably end the stream because I probably botched the pronunciation, given how I acquired my knowledge of the French language through family and stuff like that. So, and they were starting off with a weird dialect anyway. So, with that, I will wish you a happy Wednesday, and I'll roll the closing graphics. And Jonathan, you rock. We got to gather you on the live stream one of these days.